Hello there, and welcome back to Bedtime Science. I'm really glad you're here tonight. There is a particular kind of scientific fact that feels almost impossible when you first hear it. Not because it is mystical, and not because it asks you to believe in anything beyond evidence, but because the world is simply stranger than ordinary intuition prepares us for. Human intuition evolved for a narrow range of experience. We are comfortable with rooms, bodies, weather, animals, tools, fire, distance, hunger, light, and time at the scale of a human life. But science reaches below that scale into atoms and proteins, above it into galaxies and deep time, and sideways into forms of life and matter that do not behave the way everyday objects appear to behave. Tonight, we will move through a long chain of facts that sound as if they should be fake, but are grounded in real science, careful measurement, or well-established observation. Some are cosmic, some are biological, some are historical, some are tiny enough to fit inside a cell, while others are so large that the human mind can only approach them through comparison. The point is not to overwhelm the mind, but to let it soften around the strangeness. One quiet fact after another. The world becomes larger, less ordinary, and somehow calmer when we remember that reality does not need to be simple in order to be true. A teaspoon of neutron star matter would have a mass of several billion tons. Neutron stars are the collapsed remnants of massive stars, typically only about 20 kilometers across, but containing more mass than the Sun. Their matter is compressed to densities far beyond anything found naturally on Earth. In a simplified description, electrons and protons have been crushed into a neutron-rich state, and the remaining material is packed so tightly that ordinary ideas of solid matter stop being useful. A small volume of such matter would have a mass comparable to a mountain. The surface gravity of a neutron star is also extraordinary, hundreds of billions of times stronger than gravity on Earth. A small object falling only a short distance near its surface would release an amount of energy far beyond anything familiar from ordinary falling objects. The exact details depend on the neutron star's mass, radius, and equation of state, which are still active areas of astrophysics. But the broad fact remains. A neutron star is one of the densest directly observable objects in the universe. The Eiffel Tower is approximately 15 centimeters taller in summer than in winter. This is not a measurement error or a legend. It is a straightforward consequence of thermal expansion, the physical phenomenon in which materials expand when heated and contract when cooled. The Eiffel Tower, built from approximately 7,300 tons of iron, expands measurably as its temperature rises in summer and contracts as it falls in winter. The change in height between the coldest winter temperatures and the hottest summer temperatures in Paris amounts to approximately 15 centimeters, about the height of a coffee mug. The same phenomenon causes bridge decks to gap at expansion joints, railway tracks to buckle in extreme heat, and the careful engineering of building components in climates with large temperature ranges. Hot water can sometimes freeze faster than colder water under specific conditions, a phenomenon known as the Mpemba effect. It is named after Erasto Mpemba, a Tanzanian student who noticed in the 1960s that hot ice cream mix could freeze faster than cooler mix, and who persisted with the question even when adults dismissed it. The effect is real in some experimental setups, but it is not a simple rule that hot water always freezes faster than cold water. In fact, much of the scientific interest comes from how difficult the effect is to define and reproduce. Evaporation can reduce the amount of hot water. Convection can change how heat is transferred. Dissolved gases, impurities, container material, freezer surfaces, and supercooling can all matter. The lesson is not that hot water magically beats thermodynamics. The lesson is quieter and more interesting. Even something as familiar as water freezing can contain hidden variables that make simple intuition fail. Oxford University is older than the Aztec Empire. Teaching at Oxford began in some form around 1096 CE and developed rapidly from 1167 CE, when Henry II banned English students from attending the University of Paris. The Aztec Empire, the Triple Alliance of Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan, was founded in 1428 CE. This means that Oxford had been a functioning university for approximately 330 years before the Aztec Empire existed. Similarly, the University of Bologna, founded in 1088 CE, predates the Aztec Empire by 340 years. The medieval universities of Europe are genuinely ancient institutions by the standard of many things that seem ancient by association. Cleopatra lived closer in time to the moon landing than to the construction of the Great Pyramid. Cleopatra VII died in 30 BCE. Apollo 11 landed on the moon in 1969 CE, roughly 2,000 years later. The Great Pyramid of Giza was completed around 2560 BCE, more than 25 centuries before Cleopatra's lifetime. So Cleopatra was not living near the beginning of ancient Egypt. She lived in the very late phase of Egyptian history, closer to the modern space age than to the pyramid builders who had already been ancient for her. This comparison is useful because the mind tends to compress the past. We say ancient Egypt as if it were one block of time, but Egyptian civilization itself stretched across thousands of years, long enough for its own monuments to become ancient within antiquity. The total biomass of ants on Earth is enormous, though the old claim that ants weigh exactly as much as all humans is too simple. A careful 2022 estimate placed the number of ants on Earth at about 20 quadrillion individuals, with a total biomass of about 12 megatons of dry carbon. Depending on how biomass is measured and which human estimate is used, that is not necessarily equal to the biomass of all humans, but it is still astonishing. Ants are tiny as individuals, yet collectively they are one of the dominant animal groups on land. Their colonies build soil, disperse seeds, recycle nutrients, farm fungi, defend territories, and move through ecosystems in numbers so large that no single human-scale intuition can represent them properly. One ant is a speck. 20 quadrillion ants are a planetary force. There are more possible iterations of a game of chess than there are atoms in the observable universe. The number of atoms in the observable universe is estimated at approximately 10 to the power of 80. The number of possible chess games, distinct sequences of moves from start to finish, is estimated at approximately 10 to the power of 120, a number known as the Shannon number, after the mathematician Claude Shannon, who made this calculation in 1950. This is not the number of possible board positions, which is itself astronomical, but the number of complete game sequences. The implication is that even if every atom in the observable universe were itself a computer playing a unique game of chess, the combined set would not exhaust the possible games. The combinatorial complexity of chess is one reason it remained a domain that computers struggled to master for decades. A strawberry is not a botanical berry. A banana is. In botanical terminology, a berry is a fleshy fruit developed from a single flower with one ovary. Bananas, grapes, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, kiwis, and avocados all qualify as botanical berries. Strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, and mulberries do not. They are aggregate fruits or accessory fruits developed from multiple ovaries or from structures that include non-ovary tissue. The bright red part of a strawberry that we eat is the swollen receptacle, not the ovary. The actual fruit of the strawberry plant is the tiny yellow seeds dotting the surface. The common names of fruits have no obligation to match botanical classification, which is why the classification seems so counterintuitive. The lighter was invented before the match. The chemical lighter was invented by the German chemist Johann Wolfgang Dobereiner in 1823. The modern friction match, the kind struck against a rough surface, was invented in 1826 by English chemist John Walker. Dobereiner's lighter used a platinum catalyst to ignite hydrogen gas, which was produced by the reaction of zinc with sulfuric acid. It was expensive and not commercially practical, but it existed as a functional fire-starting device before the friction match that it might seem to have been designed to replace. A cloud can weigh more than 1,000,000 pounds. An average cumulus cloud, the fluffy white clouds that dot fair weather skies, can contain roughly 500 tons of water droplets per cubic kilometer of cloud volume. A typical cumulus cloud occupying approximately 1 cubic kilometer contains approximately 500,000 kilograms of water, equivalent to several hundred adult blue whales. The reason clouds float despite this mass is that the water is distributed as tiny droplets suspended by upward air currents, not concentrated in a mass that would overcome aerodynamic lift. The weight is real. The distribution makes it buoyant. The universe appears to be electrically neutral on large scales, and that fact is more remarkable than it sounds. Ordinary matter contains positively charged protons and negatively charged electrons, and the magnitudes of those charges match with extraordinary precision. If that balance were even slightly imperfect in ordinary matter, the electromagnetic force between large objects would overwhelm gravity, because electromagnetism is vastly stronger than gravity at the particle scale. The result would not be a universe of stars, planets, chemistry, and quiet rooms. It would be a universe dominated by enormous electric imbalances. The fact that matter is stable and macroscopically neutral is one of those background conditions so familiar that it becomes invisible, yet everything from a drop of water to a human body depends on it. A day on Venus is longer than a year on Venus. Venus takes approximately 243 Earth days to complete one rotation on its axis, one Venusian day. But it takes only approximately 225 Earth days to complete one orbit around the Sun, one Venusian year. This means that a day on Venus is longer than its year. The slow, retrograde rotation of Venus, it rotates in the opposite direction to most planets, is thought to result from a combination of tidal interactions with the Sun and possibly a large impact event early in the solar system's history. The combined effect of Venus's slow rotation and its orbital motion around the Sun means that a solar day on Venus, the time from one sunrise to the next, is approximately 117 Earth days. Mercury is not the hottest planet. Even though it is the closest planet to the Sun, Venus is hotter. Mercury has almost no atmosphere to trap heat, so its day side can become extremely hot, while its night side becomes extremely cold. Venus, by contrast, is wrapped in a thick atmosphere dominated by carbon dioxide, with clouds of sulfuric acid and a powerful greenhouse effect that keeps the surface hot enough to melt lead. The result is counterintuitive. Moving closer to the Sun is not the only way to become hotter. Atmosphere matters. Pressure matters. Chemistry matters. A planet can be second from the Sun and still become the hottest world in the solar system because its air has turned into a heat-trapping blanket. There are more trees on Earth than stars in the Milky Way. Current estimates, based on satellite imagery analysis published in a 2015 Nature paper by Thomas Crowther and colleagues, place the global tree count at approximately 3 trillion, 3 million trees. The Milky Way contains between 100 billion and 400 billion stars. The tree estimate exceeds the upper end of the stellar estimate by a factor of approximately 7 to 30. This comparison is frequently cited as surprising because the night sky, packed with stars on a clear dark night, gives an impression of enormous number, while trees, seen one at a time in familiar landscapes, seem countable. The aggregate of the world's forests contains a number of individual trees that makes the stellar population of our galaxy seem modest. You can hear a sonification of the early universe. Not directly. The Big Bang occurred approximately 13.8 billion years ago, and there was no sound in the ordinary human sense of air vibrating against an eardrum. But the cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the early universe, detectable as a faint microwave signal filling the entire sky, does contain information about the pressure waves, analogous to sound waves, that propagated through the hot plasma of the early universe before it cooled and became transparent. These waves have been analyzed and converted into audible sound by physicists, and recordings of this converted signal are available online. You can listen to what the early universe sounded like. The total length of blood vessels in a human body, if laid end to end, is often estimated at around 100,000 kilometers, enough to encircle Earth more than twice. The exact number depends on body size, tissue density, and whether the smallest capillaries are included, but the basic point is secure. The vascular system is vast. Most of that length is not in the large arteries and veins we imagine first, but in the capillaries, microscopic vessels narrow enough that red blood cells often pass through in single file. This enormous branching network allows oxygen and nutrients to reach tissues by diffusion over very short distances. The body is not supplied by a few large pipes. It is supplied by a living forest of vessels, branching down into channels so fine that the circulation becomes almost invisible. Mammoths were still alive after the Great Pyramid had already been built. Most woolly mammoths disappeared from mainland populations earlier, but a small isolated population survived on Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean until roughly 1650 BCE. The Great Pyramid of Giza was completed around 2560 BCE. That means the final mammoths were living on a remote island almost 1,000 years after one of the most famous monuments in human history had already risen above the Egyptian desert. This does not mean mammoths walked beside the pyramids, and it does not erase the deep prehistoric age of the species. It simply reminds us that extinction is often not a single moment. A species can vanish from most of the world while a last population persists, quietly, at the edge of the map. Saturn's rings are thinner than a piece of paper relative to their width. Saturn's rings extend approximately 280,000 kilometers from the planet, roughly the distance from Earth to the Moon. Their thickness, however, is estimated at approximately 10 to 1,000 meters in the main rings, with most of the mass concentrated in an even thinner layer. The ratio of width to thickness in Saturn's rings is comparable to a sheet of paper with a diameter of about 1 kilometer. The apparent solidity of the rings when viewed through a telescope conceals a structure that is extraordinarily flat relative to its extent. There are more ways to arrange a standard deck of 52 playing cards than there have been seconds since the Big Bang. The number of possible orderings of a 52-card deck is 52 factorial, the product of all integers from 1 to 52. This number is approximately 8 times 10 to the power of 67. The age of the universe is approximately 13.8 billion years, which is approximately 4.3 times 10 to the power of 17 seconds. The number of possible card arrangements exceeds the age of the universe in seconds by approximately 50 orders of magnitude. When a deck of cards is genuinely shuffled, the resulting arrangement has almost certainly never existed before in the history of the universe, and will almost certainly never exist again. The human nose can detect some odors at concentrations of parts per trillion. The compound geosmin, which produces the characteristic smell of rain on dry earth, petrichor, can be detected by the human olfactory system at concentrations of about 5 parts per trillion. This is equivalent to 1 drop dissolved in approximately 400 Olympic swimming pools. The evolutionary rationale for this extraordinary sensitivity is thought to be that geosmin indicates the presence of moist, biologically active soil associated with water sources, an important signal for water location in arid conditions. The human nose is, in a very real sense, more sensitive than most analytical laboratory instruments for specific compounds. Helium is the only element in the periodic table that was discovered in the Sun before it was found on Earth. The characteristic spectral lines of helium were observed in the spectrum of the Sun during a solar eclipse in 1868 by astronomer Pierre Janssen, and the element was named after Helios, the Greek god of the sun. It was not identified as a terrestrial element until 1895, when William Ramsay found it in gas released from the mineral clevite. The discovery of an element in sunlight before it was known to exist on Earth is one of the more remarkable episodes in the history of chemistry. The mantis shrimp can throw a punch with the acceleration of a bullet fired from a gun. The dactyl clubs, the club-like appendages that mantis shrimps use to smash prey, accelerate at approximately 10,000 g, 10,000 times the acceleration of gravity, reaching speeds of approximately 80 kilometers per hour. The strike generates forces sufficient to break aquarium glass and to fracture the shells of hard-bodied prey, including crabs and mollusks. The strike is so fast that it creates cavitation bubbles, regions of near vacuum in the water, whose collapse generates an additional shock wave that can itself stun or kill prey, even if the physical blow misses. The mantis shrimp effectively hits its prey twice with each strike. The speed of light in a vacuum is exactly 299,792,458 meters per second, not approximately. This precise value is not a measurement result, but a definition. In 1983, the International Bureau of Weights and Measures redefined the meter as the distance light travels in a vacuum in 1,299,792,458th of a second, fixing the speed of light as an exact value by definition. The second is defined independently in terms of the cesium atomic clock transition frequency. This means that the speed of light, one of the most fundamental constants in physics, has an exact numerical value not because we measured it so precisely, but because we chose to define the meter in terms of it. The global positioning system works only because relativity is taken seriously. The clocks on GPS satellites are moving relative to clocks on Earth, which makes them tick slightly slower according to special relativity. They are also higher in Earth's gravitational field, where gravity is weaker, which makes them tick slightly faster according to general relativity. The two effects do not cancel perfectly. If engineers ignored them, the position errors would grow rapidly, and the system would become useless for precise navigation. This is one of the most practical strange facts in modern science. Relativity is not only something that happens near black holes or at the edges of the universe. It is quietly built into the map app that tells a car where to turn. The Pacific Ocean is larger than all of Earth's land combined. The Pacific Ocean covers approximately 165 million square kilometers, larger than the total land area of all continents combined, which is approximately 149 million square kilometers. The Pacific is so large that it could contain all the world's land masses simultaneously with room to spare. The enormous size of the Pacific becomes particularly striking when flying across it. A nonstop flight from Los Angeles to Sydney, covering approximately 12,000 kilometers, spends the vast majority of its duration over the Pacific, with no land visible for hours in any direction. The atmosphere does not end at a sharp boundary. There is no exact line where Earth stops and space begins in the physical sense. The air simply becomes thinner and thinner with altitude, fading gradually from the dense lower atmosphere into the extremely sparse outer exosphere, where individual gas atoms can travel enormous distances before colliding with anything. The Kármán line, often placed at 100 kilometers above sea level, is a useful convention for aviation and spaceflight, not a wall. A spacecraft does not cross an invisible ceiling and suddenly enter a different universe. It moves through a gradient, leaving behind more and more air until the word sky becomes less useful than the word orbit. Water can exist in 3 states simultaneously at a specific temperature and pressure known as the triple point. At the triple point of water, approximately 0.01 degrees Celsius and 611.657 pascals, liquid water, ice, and water vapor coexist in thermodynamic equilibrium. The triple point is so precisely defined that it was used as the defining temperature for the Kelvin scale from 1954 to 2019, when the Kelvin was redefined in terms of fundamental constants. At the triple point, water can maintain ice, liquid water, and vapor together in one equilibrium system, though the actual laboratory setup must control temperature and pressure very carefully. The triple point is unique. At any other combination of temperature and pressure, only 1 or 2 states of water can coexist. There are more atoms in a glass of water than there are glasses of water in all the Earth's oceans. A typical glass holds approximately 250 milliliters of water, which contains approximately 8.4 moles of water molecules, approximately 5 times 10 to the power of 24 water molecules. Each molecule contains 3 atoms, giving approximately 1.5 times 10 to the power of 25 atoms per glass. The Earth's oceans contain approximately 1.3 times 10 to the power of 21 liters of water, equivalent to approximately 5 times 10 to the power of 21 standard glasses. The ratio, more atoms in one glass than glasses in the ocean, is approximately 3,000 to 1. A blue whale's heart is enormous, though popular descriptions often exaggerate it. It is not literally the size of a normal car, but it can weigh around 180 kilograms and is often compared to a small golf cart or a very large piece of furniture. Its main artery, the aorta, has been described as wide enough for a small child to pass through, though this is a rough anatomical comparison rather than a practical measurement. The heart beats slowly compared with a human heart, especially during deep dives, when the whale's physiology shifts into oxygen conservation. Every part of the blue whale is scaled to an animal larger than any dinosaur confidently known to science. Its heart is not just a symbol of size. It is part of a cardiovascular system capable of circulating blood through a body longer than a tennis court, supporting dives, feeding lunges, migration, and life in cold open ocean. When you look at the night sky with the naked eye on a clear dark night, the most distant object you can see, the Andromeda Galaxy, is approximately 2.5 million light-years away. The light reaching your eyes from Andromeda left that galaxy approximately 2.5 million years ago, when our ancestors were early Homo species who had not yet discovered fire. You are looking 2.5 million years into the past every time you look at the faint smudge of light in the constellation Andromeda. The number of neurons in the human brain is in the same broad order of magnitude as the number of stars in the Milky Way. The brain contains about 86 billion neurons, based on careful modern cell counting. The Milky Way is usually estimated to contain somewhere between 100 billion and 400 billion stars. So the two numbers are not exactly equal, but they are close enough to be startling. A galaxy-sized number of signaling cells is packed inside a soft organ of about 1.5 liters. Each neuron may connect to thousands of others, producing a network whose possible patterns of activity are far beyond direct enumeration. The comparison is not perfect, but it works as a doorway into scale. The brain is not large by cosmic standards, but internally, it is vast. Sound travels approximately 4 times faster in water than in air. The speed of sound in air at room temperature is approximately 343 meters per second. In seawater, sound travels at approximately 1,480 meters per second, about 4.3 times faster. This faster transmission is why whale song can travel across entire ocean basins. The SOFA, or channel, a layer of ocean water where sound speed is at a minimum and sound becomes trapped by refraction, allows low-frequency sounds to travel thousands of kilometers with relatively little attenuation. Blue whale calls, which are in the infrasonic range below the threshold of human hearing, may travel across entire ocean basins through this channel. The human body produces astonishing numbers of new cells every second, but the common claim of 25 million new cells per second is best treated cautiously. The bone marrow alone produces roughly 2 million red blood cells every second, replacing cells that have completed their approximately 120-day lifespan. Other tissues also renew constantly. The gut lining, skin, immune cells, and many blood cell populations are continuously replaced. Across the body, cell turnover is not one single clock, but a whole orchestra of different rhythms. Some cells live days, some live months. Some neurons may last for a lifetime. The real wonder is not a single exact number, but the maintenance itself. A body that appears continuous from the outside is, underneath, replacing, repairing, and renewing itself every moment. Enzymes can make chemical reactions happen billions or trillions of times faster than they would occur on their own. A reaction that might take years, centuries, or longer in ordinary water can occur inside a cell in fractions of a second because a protein has folded into exactly the right shape to hold the reacting molecules, strain their bonds, stabilize a transition state, and release the product. This is one of the quietest, impossible-sounding facts in biology. Life is not only made of chemicals. It is made of chemicals arranged into molecular tools that change the speed of chemistry itself. Every breath, every heartbeat, every memory, every repair process in the body depends on these microscopic accelerators working in darkness, at body temperature, without noise, flame, or conscious direction. Sharks are older than trees. The earliest shark-like fish appear in the fossil record approximately 450 million years ago. The earliest trees, the first plants with woody trunks capable of growing to significant heights, appear in the fossil record approximately 380 million years ago. Sharks therefore have a fossil record approximately 70 million years older than trees. The modern shark body plan has persisted, with relatively little modification, for hundreds of millions of years. Sharks survived all 5 of the major mass extinction events in Earth's history. The sun releases an almost unimaginable amount of energy every second. Its luminosity is about 3.8 times 10 to the power of 26 watts, a number so large that ordinary comparisons collapse under it. All of human civilization's energy use is a tiny flicker beside the continuous output of one ordinary star. This energy comes from nuclear fusion in the sun's core, where hydrogen nuclei combine to form helium, converting a small amount of mass into energy according to Einstein's equation. Only a minuscule fraction of the sun's total output reaches Earth, but that fraction powers weather, climate, photosynthesis, ocean circulation, and nearly every food chain on the planet. We live inside the faint outer generosity of a star. In special relativity, there is a quiet sense in which motion through space and motion through time are connected. For objects with mass, the more rapidly an object moves through space relative to an observer, the more slowly its time passes relative to that observer. This is time dilation, and it is not philosophical metaphor. It has been measured in particle lifetimes, aircraft clocks, and the corrections required for satellite navigation systems. It is tempting to say that everything moves through space-time at the speed of light, but that statement is an informal way of describing a deeper mathematical structure, not a simple everyday velocity. And for photons, there is no valid rest frame. So it is not quite correct to say that light experiences time from its own perspective. The better fact is stranger. Time itself depends on motion, and the universe has no single universal clock shared by all observers. The universe is expanding, and very distant galaxies can recede from us faster than the speed of light because the distance between galaxies is increasing as space itself expands. This does not violate special relativity because the galaxies are not racing through local space faster than light. Rather, the scale of space between us is changing. Cosmology has several different horizons, and they are often confused. The observable universe reaches to matter whose light has had time to arrive since the early universe, now located tens of billions of light years away in present-day distance. The future event horizon is different. It describes events whose light, emitted now or later, will never reach us because cosmic expansion keeps increasing the separation. The basic point is humbling. The universe is not only large, parts of it are permanently beyond contact. The atoms in your body have passed through many earlier forms before becoming you. The carbon in your cells, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen in your blood, and the iron inside hemoglobin have cycled through stars, rocks, oceans, air, soil, microbes, plants, and other animals across deep time. It would be too neat to say that every atom has been in trillions of living things, because different elements cycle through the biosphere in different ways and at different speeds. But it is true that the material of the body is ancient and shared. Nothing in the body is newly invented. Life borrows atoms, arranges them briefly into living form, and eventually returns them to the larger circulation of Earth. The average adult human body contains enough fat to make 7 bars of soap. This statement is based on the chemical composition of human body fat, triacylglycerols, which can be saponified through the same alkaline hydrolysis used in soap making. The average adult body contains approximately 15 to 30% fat by mass, depending on sex and physical condition, and this fat, if fully converted to soap, would produce approximately 7 bars of standard soap. The same chemistry underlies the historical, and occasionally contemporary, phenomenon of saponification of corpses buried in wet, alkaline soils, producing grave wax or adipocere, a substance similar to soap. Giant squid and colossal squid have some of the largest eyes ever studied in the animal kingdom. In these deep-sea cephalopods, the eyes can reach roughly the size of a dinner plate, large enough to collect faint light in the dim ocean depths. These enormous eyes are thought to help detect the silhouettes or bioluminescent disturbance of sperm whales and other large predators moving through the darkness. Larger eyes collect more photons, improving sensitivity where sunlight has almost disappeared. The fact is not just that a squid has a big eye. It is that evolution built a living optical instrument for a world where almost no light remains, and where seeing a shadow in time may be the difference between escape and death. The human body contains enough carbon to make approximately 9,000 pencil tips. The human body is approximately 18% carbon by mass. A typical adult contains approximately 16 to 18 kilograms of carbon. Graphite, the form of carbon used in pencil leads, which are not actually made of lead but of a graphite and clay mixture, is crystalline carbon. If all the carbon in a human body were converted to pure graphite, it could fill approximately 9,000 standard pencil tips at typical graphite volumes per pencil. Identical twins do not have identical fingerprints. Although identical twins share the same genome, having developed from a single fertilized egg that split, their fingerprint patterns differ because fingerprints develop from a complex interaction of genetic factors and the specific physical environment within the womb, including the precise position of the fingers against the uterine wall and the fluid dynamics of the amniotic fluid. Small differences in these physical conditions produce different ridge patterns in each twin despite identical DNA. Fingerprints are therefore not purely genetically determined and can distinguish identical twins even though conventional genetic testing cannot. There is a species of jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii, that is considered biologically immortal. Under stress or injury, this jellyfish can revert from its sexually mature adult medusa form back to the sexually immature polyp stage through a process of transdifferentiation, the transformation of one cell type into a completely different cell type, effectively resetting its developmental clock. The process can repeat indefinitely, making Turritopsis dohrnii potentially immortal in the sense that it does not die of old age. It can still be killed by disease, predators, or environmental conditions, but senescence as a cause of death apparently does not apply to it. The light from the sun takes approximately 8 minutes and 20 seconds to reach Earth, but some of that same light took approximately 100,000 years to travel from the center of the sun to its surface. Photons produced by nuclear fusion in the solar core do not travel in straight lines through the dense solar plasma. They are constantly absorbed and re-emitted, scattering in random directions through the plasma in a process called the random walk. The average photon produced in the solar core takes between 10,000 and 100,000 years to work its way through the solar interior to the surface, where it escapes into space and crosses the remaining 150 million kilometers to Earth in approximately 8 minutes. A cubic centimeter of a white dwarf, the stellar remnant left after a sun-like star exhausts its nuclear fuel, would weigh approximately 1 ton on Earth. White dwarfs are supported against gravitational collapse, not by thermal pressure, but by electron degeneracy pressure, a quantum mechanical effect arising from the Pauli exclusion principle, which prevents two electrons from occupying the same quantum state. This support mechanism allows white dwarfs to maintain their incredibly dense structure even as they cool over billions of years. At these densities, atoms are so compressed that their electron clouds overlap completely and the material behaves as a quantum degenerate plasma rather than as ordinary gas or solid. Some neutron stars spin hundreds of times per second. These objects, called pulsars when their beams sweep across Earth, are the collapsed cores of massive stars compressed into spheres only about the size of a city. If such an object rotated slowly, it would already be strange. But some rotate faster than the blades of a kitchen blender, with lighthouse-like beams of radiation flashing across space at perfectly regular intervals. The fastest confirmed pulsars spin hundreds of times per second, turning an entire stellar remnant into a cosmic clock. Their regularity is so precise that astronomers use them to test gravity, search for planets, and detect the subtle stretching and squeezing of space-time caused by gravitational waves. Grasshoppers have ears in their abdomen. The tympanal organ, the hearing organ, of grasshoppers is located on the first segment of the abdomen, not on the head. It consists of a thin membrane stretched across an air-filled cavity, functioning similarly to a mammalian eardrum. Different insects have placed their hearing organs in remarkably diverse anatomical locations. Crickets have ears on their front legs, mosquitoes detect sound through Johnston's organ in their antennae, and certain moths have ears on their thorax or abdomen that are specifically tuned to detect the ultrasonic calls of echolocating bats. Antarctica is a desert. A desert is defined by precipitation, specifically as a region that receives less than 250 millimeters of precipitation per year. Antarctica's interior receives approximately 50 to 200 millimeters of precipitation per year as snow, placing it firmly in the desert category. The Antarctic interior is the world's largest cold desert, more arid than the Sahara in terms of annual precipitation. The vast ice sheet exists not because Antarctica receives heavy snowfall, but because the snow that does fall does not melt. It accumulates over hundreds of thousands of years into the multi-kilometer thick ice sheet. Your stomach gets a new lining approximately every 2 to 3 days. The cells of the stomach lining, which are exposed to highly acidic gastric juice and to the digestive enzymes that break down proteins, have a lifespan of approximately 2 to 3 days before they are shed and replaced by new cells from the rapidly dividing stem cells of the gastric glands. This rapid turnover means that the stomach continuously renews its inner surface, which would otherwise be digested by its own secretions. The protective mucus layer that coats the stomach lining and the bicarbonate secreted into this mucus are the first line of defense against self-digestion. But the backup is the rapid renewal of any cells that do sustain damage. Roosters have a built-in ear protection mechanism that prevents them from going deaf from their own crowing. A rooster's crow can exceed 130 decibels at close range, louder than a chainsaw and well above the threshold for immediate hearing damage. Research published in 2018 found that when a rooster opens its mouth to crow, the outer ear canal closes approximately half of its length, and the eardrum itself is partly covered by a soft tissue fold, reducing the sound reaching the inner ear by approximately 10 decibels. This self-protection mechanism was not known until researchers examined roosters specifically for it after noticing that roosters show no signs of progressive hearing damage despite producing their own extremely loud vocalizations thousands of times over their lifetimes. The total amount of gold ever mined in human history would fit in a cube approximately 22 meters on a side, about the size of a large suburban house. All the gold ever extracted from the earth, used in jewelry, electronics, coins, industrial applications, and stored in central bank reserves, amounts to approximately 220,000 tons. At the density of gold, this mass occupies approximately 11,000 cubic meters, equivalent to a cube of approximately 22 meters on each side. The relative scarcity of gold, despite the perception that enormous amounts have been produced, reflects both the actual rarity of economically recoverable gold deposits and the enormous effort required to mine it. Wombats produce cubic poop. They are the only known animal to produce feces in a cubic shape. The digestive system of the wombat has an unusually long and irregular colon whose walls vary in elasticity, producing dry, compact fecal pellets with approximately square cross-sections and flattened sides that result in cubic or rectangular shapes. Wombats use their poop as territorial scent markers, placing it on rocks and logs, and the cubic shape prevents the pellets from rolling away. The geometry of wombat feces was studied in a paper published in Soft Matter in 2021 that won an Ig Nobel Prize for work that first makes people laugh and then makes them think. The human visual system can approach the single photon limit under ideal conditions, which is one of the most astonishing facts in sensory biology. Rod photoreceptors in the retina are sensitive enough that a single photon can trigger a measurable response in a rod cell. Experiments using carefully controlled single photon sources have reported that human observers can detect single photons at rates above chance under very dark adapted conditions, though the interpretation and statistical strength of such experiments have been debated. That caution matters. Still, the broader fact remains remarkable. Vision is operating near a physical limit. A single quantum of light, absorbed by a molecule of rhodopsin in a dark adapted rod, can begin a biochemical cascade large enough for the nervous system to notice. Flamingos are not born pink. Flamingo chicks hatch with gray or white down, and the famous pink coloration develops later from carotenoid pigments in their food, algae, brine shrimp, and other small organisms. The pigment is absorbed, metabolized, and deposited in feathers and skin. A flamingo is therefore colored partly by the chemistry of its diet. Without enough carotenoid-rich food, flamingos become paler. What looks like a fixed identity is, in this case, a record of feeding, metabolism, habitat, and time. Trees communicate with each other through chemical signals released into the air. When a tree is attacked by herbivorous insects, It releases volatile organic compounds, primarily terpenes and other hydrocarbons, that neighbor trees detect and respond to by increasing the concentration of defensive compounds in their own leaves. This chemical communication has been documented in dozens of plant species, including acacia trees, oak, willow, and poplar, and has been demonstrated in controlled experiments where trees are isolated from soil contact but still respond to the airborne signals of damaged neighbors. Whether this constitutes communication in any sense involving awareness or intention is a philosophical question. The functional response, one tree's damage triggering defensive responses in nearby trees, is well established. The DNA in a single nucleated human cell, if stretched out, would be about 2 meters long. That sentence needs the word nucleated because mature human red blood cells have expelled their nuclei and do not contain a full nuclear genome. In the cells that do keep nuclei, that 2-meter strand is compressed into a nucleus only a few micrometers across by a hierarchical folding system involving histone proteins, nucleosomes, loops, and higher-order chromatin structure. The surprising fact is not merely the length. It is the packaging, a molecule long enough to measure in meters, folded into a space so small it can only be seen with a microscope, while still remaining accessible to the machinery that reads, copies, repairs, and regulates it. Crows can recognize and remember individual human faces and can hold grudges against specific people for years. Research by John Marsluff and colleagues at the University of Washington found that crows captured, banded, and released while the researcher wore a specific mask retained the memory of that mask as a threatening human for years, scolding the person wearing the mask on sight and recruiting other crows to join in the harassment. This behavior, which represents face recognition, long-term memory, and social communication of threat, was transmitted to other crows that had never experienced the original capture and appeared in the crow population for at least 7 years after the initial event. The same research found that crows also recognize and approach people who had previously treated them well. In some tropical forest samples, the number of insects and other arthropods in a small area can reach numbers that feel impossible. A hectare of tropical forest can contain immense populations of ants, beetles, flies, mites, springtails, and other small animals, with estimates varying widely depending on location, season, sampling method, and whether the count includes soil and canopy organisms. It is safer to say that the number of individual arthropods in a rich tropical forest can be staggeringly high, sometimes approaching or exceeding human population numbers in surprisingly small areas, rather than treating one dramatic comparison as universal. The deeper truth is still powerful. Most animal life, by individual count, is small, jointed, and usually unnoticed. The probability that some atoms in your body once passed through the body of Julius Caesar or any other person who lived long enough ago is surprisingly high. The classic version of the calculation usually uses breath, not whole bodies. Molecules from a person's final exhalation disperse through the atmosphere over centuries. And because the atmosphere is so well mixed, a modern breath statistically contains some molecules that were once exhaled by people from the distant past. The exact number depends on assumptions about mixing, chemistry, and whether the molecules remain unchanged, so it should not be treated as a precise literal count. But the general idea is sound. Air is shared across time. Every breath contains history diluted to invisibility. The surface area of human lungs, if spread flat, would cover approximately 70 square meters, roughly the floor area of a small apartment. This enormous surface area is achieved through the hierarchical branching of the airways into smaller and smaller tubes, ending in approximately 300 million tiny alveoli, each about 200 micrometers in diameter. The scale of this surface area is what allows the lungs to exchange the several hundred milliliters of oxygen per minute that the resting body requires, with each alveolus surrounded by a dense capillary network separated from the airspace by a wall only half a micrometer thick. You shed approximately 30 to 40,000 skin cells per hour, which amounts to approximately 1 kilogram of skin per year. The skin cells, called keratinocytes in their living form and corneocytes in their final dead, keratin-filled form in the outermost skin layer, are continuously produced by dividing cells in the deepest skin layer and migrate outward, differentiating and eventually flattening and dying over approximately 30 days. The stratum corneum, the outermost layer of dead, flattened cells, is continuously shed from the surface as new cells push upward from below. The dust in most homes contains a significant proportion of shed human skin cells, which in turn supports populations of dust mites that feed on them. Butterflies taste with their feet. The taste receptors of butterflies are located in sensory neurons on the tarsi, the feet, which allows them to detect the chemical composition of surfaces by simply standing on them. When a female butterfly lands on a leaf and walks across it, she is simultaneously tasting the leaf's chemical profile to determine whether it is a suitable host plant for her eggs. If the chemical signals indicate the correct host plant species, she will lay her eggs there. Many insects use chemoreceptors on their legs and feet for similar sampling functions, reflecting the evolutionary advantage of assessing surfaces immediately upon contact. The number of bacterial cells in and on the human body is roughly comparable to the number of human cells, but not 10 times greater, as older popular claims often said. For much of the 20th century, textbooks and articles repeated a dramatic 10-to-1 ratio of microbes to human cells. A careful recalculation by Ron Cinder, Shai Fuchs, and Ron Milo in 2016 revised the picture. For a reference adult male, the estimate was about 30 trillion human cells and about 38 trillion bacteria. The exact ratio changes with body size, meals, bowel contents, and measurement assumptions, but the better fact is still striking. You are not outnumbered 10-to-1 by microbes. You are accompanied by a microbial population of the same broad order as your own cells. Horses and cows sleep standing up for most of their sleep, but must lie down for REM sleep. Horses have a passive stay apparatus, a series of ligaments and tendons in their legs that allow them to lock their joints and doze in a standing position without muscular effort, preventing them from falling over while sleeping lightly. However, the muscle atonia, the complete relaxation of skeletal muscles that characterizes REM sleep, cannot be maintained standing without collapsing. So horses and other large ungulates must lie down briefly to achieve the deeper sleep stages, including REM. Horses that cannot lie down, through pain, social stress, or physical restriction, may become chronically REM deprived, with consequences for health and behavior. Ripe oranges are not always orange. In warm tropical climates, citrus fruit can remain partly green on the outside even when the flesh inside is sweet and mature. The familiar orange color of the peel depends on chlorophyll breakdown, carotenoid development, temperature, variety, and post-harvest handling. Commercial citrus can be treated with controlled ethylene exposure to remove green color from the peel, a process called degreening, because consumers often expect ripe fruit to look orange even when peel color is not a perfect measure of sweetness. The surprising truth is simple. The color of an orange is not just ripeness. It is plant chemistry, climate, and market expectation written on a peel. Octopuses have 3 hearts. 2 branchial hearts pump blood through the gills, and 1 systemic heart, the main heart, pumps the oxygenated blood returning from the gills through the rest of the body. Octopus blood is blue because it uses hemocyanin, a copper-containing protein, rather than hemoglobin to carry oxygen. Hemocyanin is less efficient than hemoglobin at carrying oxygen at higher temperatures, which is one reason octopuses are most abundant in cooler waters. When an octopus swims, using jet propulsion from the siphon, the systemic heart stops beating, which is why octopuses tire quickly during sustained swimming and prefer to crawl along the substrate. Glass is not a solid in the classical sense, but an amorphous solid, sometimes called a supercooled liquid, though this term is somewhat misleading. Glass lacks the long-range crystalline order of a true solid. Its molecules are arranged in the same random, disordered pattern as a liquid, frozen in place when the glass cooled below its glass transition temperature without crystallizing. The claim sometimes made that old cathedral windows are thicker at the bottom because the glass has flowed over centuries is false. Medieval glass was manufactured by spinning molten glass into sheets, which produced non-uniform thickness from the start, and glaziers typically installed the thicker edge at the bottom for stability. True glass flow at room temperature would take times vastly exceeding the age of the universe. Bananas are mildly radioactive. Bananas contain potassium, and approximately 0.0117% of naturally occurring potassium is the radioactive isotope potassium-40. The amount of radioactivity in a single banana is extremely small, approximately 15 becquerels, equivalent to 15 radioactive decays per second, and poses no health risk whatsoever, since the body carefully regulates its potassium content and excretes excess potassium. The banana equivalent dose is sometimes used informally to give people a sense of scale for extremely small radiation exposures, though it has been criticized by health physicists for potentially misleading comparisons to other types of radiation exposure. The word muscle comes from the Latin musculus, meaning little mouse, because the movement of a muscle under the skin was thought to look like a mouse moving under a cloth. The etymology traces through the observable phenomenon of a contracting bicep or forearm muscle, whose shape and movement beneath the skin may have resembled a mouse to ancient observers. The same Latin root gives us the word mussel, the bivalve mollusk, which was compared to a little mouse because of its shape. The metaphorical extension from the shape and movement of a muscle to the name of an entirely different organism is one of the more charming etymological journeys in the history of anatomy. The sun moves through the Milky Way at approximately 220 kilometers per second. At this speed, the solar system completes one orbit of the galactic center approximately every 225 to 230 million years, a period sometimes called a galactic year or cosmic year. The solar system has completed approximately 20 galactic orbits since the Sun formed approximately 4.5 billion years ago. The last time the solar system was in its current position in the galaxy, the first dinosaurs were beginning to appear on Earth. The claim that the body replaces all of its atoms every 7 years is too neat to be strictly true. Different atoms and tissues turn over at very different rates. Water molecules are replaced quickly. Many proteins are replaced over hours to months. Red blood cells last about 120 days. Much of the mineral content of bone is remodeled over years. Some neurons in the cerebral cortex may remain for a lifetime, even though the molecules inside them are constantly repaired and replaced. There is no single 7-year reset button. The real fact is more subtle. The body is materially dynamic. You are not built once and then merely used. You are continuously maintained, exchanged, repaired, and chemically renewed while the pattern of you persists. Some of the most convincing sounding explanations are false, which is itself an important scientific fact. The phrase rule of thumb is often claimed to come from a supposed law allowing a man to beat his wife with a stick no thicker than his thumb, but historians have not found evidence for such a legal origin. The phrase is much more likely connected to rough measurement by the thumb in practical trades. This belongs less to physics or biology than to the science of error. Humans love explanations that feel vivid, moral, and complete. A story can spread because it satisfies the mind, not because it is true. Science, at its best, is the habit of checking the satisfying story against evidence. Animal collective nouns can sound scientific, but many of them are really artifacts of language, hunting tradition, humor, and later invention. A parliament of owls, a murder of crows, a flamboyance of flamingos, and a prickle of porcupines are memorable, but they are not biological classifications. They tell us more about English-speaking human imagination than about the animals themselves. This is a useful distinction. Not every fact-shaped statement belongs to science. Some belong to culture. Some belong to taxonomy. Some belong to folklore. Knowing which kind of fact we are hearing is part of thinking clearly. There are more possible iterative configurations of a protein of average length than there are atoms in the observable universe. A protein of 150 amino acids assembled from the 20 standard amino acids has 20 to the power of 150 possible sequences, approximately 10 to the power of 195. The observable universe contains approximately 10 to the power of 80 atoms. The space of possible proteins is therefore many orders of magnitude larger than the number of atoms that exist. Evolution has sampled an incredibly small fraction of the sequence space to produce the proteins that underlie all known life. The sound of a finger snap reaches your ear almost instantly on the scale of conscious experience, but not literally at the same time as the movement. Sound travels through air at about 343 meters per second at room temperature. So a sound produced 30 centimeters from the ear arrives in roughly a millisecond. Sensory signals from the skin and joints travel through nerves more slowly than sound travels through air over that short distance, often taking several milliseconds to reach the central nervous system. Yet the experience feels unified. The brain binds slightly offset sensory events into one coherent moment, quietly editing the timing of perception so that the world feels stable rather than fragmented. Atoms are extraordinarily durable on human timescales, but it is not quite right to say that every atom that has ever existed will simply remain unchanged until the heat death of the universe. Atoms can be ionized, incorporated into molecules, split in nuclear reactions, fused inside stars, or transformed through radioactive decay if their nuclei are unstable. Protons, if they decay at all, have lifetimes far beyond anything yet observed experimentally. Stable atoms can persist for enormous spans of time, cycling through planets, stars, dust, bodies, oceans, and atmospheres. The quieter version of the fact is the better one. Matter changes form constantly, but much of the ordinary matter around us is ancient beyond imagination. Humans share a surprising amount of genetic machinery with bananas, but the popular number, often given as 60%, needs context. It usually refers not to total DNA sequence being 60% identical, but to a comparison of genes or gene products that have recognizable similarities because all eukaryotic life shares deep ancestry. Humans and bananas both need systems for DNA replication, cell division, energy production, protein synthesis, membrane transport, and repair. Those basic cellular tools evolved long before anything looked like a person or a banana. The strange-sounding fact is real in spirit, but it is often phrased too loosely. We are not 60% banana. We are distant relatives at the level of cellular machinery. The coldest natural temperature ever recorded on Earth was approximately negative 89.2 degrees Celsius at the Soviet Vostok Station in Antarctica in 1983. But the coldest temperatures ever achieved in laboratories are within billionths of a degree of absolute zero, approximately 10 nanokelvin or less. At these temperatures, quantum mechanical effects dominate and matter enters exotic states, including Bose-Einstein condensates, in which large numbers of atoms simultaneously occupy the same quantum state and behave as a single quantum object. The Bose-Einstein condensate was predicted by Albert Einstein in 1924 and first achieved experimentally in 1995 by Eric Cornell and Carl Wieman, who shared the 2001 Nobel Prize in Physics for the achievement. The longest living cells in the human body are neurons in the cerebral cortex, which, unlike most other cell types, are generally not replaced throughout adult life. The neurons in your cerebral cortex are approximately as old as you are. They have been working continuously since before your birth, accumulating experience and memories throughout your lifetime, and they will persist, barring disease or injury, for the duration of your life. The cells that are thinking these thoughts are decades old, have fired trillions of action potentials, and are doing now, tonight, as you approach sleep, what they have always done, maintaining the patterns of activity that constitute the experience of being you. Lightning can heat the air around it to temperatures several times hotter than the surface of the sun. The visible bolt is a channel of ionized air, a plasma, through which electrical charge suddenly moves. The air expands explosively as it is heated, and that expansion creates thunder. The flash seems instantaneous because light reaches us so quickly. The thunder comes later because sound travels much more slowly. Counting the seconds between lightning and thunder is not magic. It is a rough distance measurement. The storm is writing its location in the delay between sight and sound. The moon is slowly moving away from Earth. Laser reflectors left on the lunar surface by Apollo astronauts and Soviet robotic missions allow scientists to measure the Earth-Moon distance with extraordinary precision by bouncing laser pulses off the moon and timing their return. The result is that the moon recedes from Earth by about 3.8 centimeters per year. This is caused by tidal interactions. Earth's rotation raises tidal bulges in the oceans and crust, and the gravitational interaction between those bulges and the moon transfers angular momentum from Earth's rotation to the moon's orbit. Days on Earth are very slowly lengthening, and the moon is very slowly drifting outward. Earth's days are slowly getting longer. The same tidal interaction that moves the moon away from Earth also transfers angular momentum from Earth's rotation to the moon's orbit. Ocean tides raised by the moon do not line up perfectly with the Earth-Moon axis because Earth rotates beneath them. The gravitational pull between these tidal bulges and the moon acts like a weak brake on Earth's spin, lengthening the day by tiny amounts over geological time. The effect is too small to notice in a human life without precise instruments, but over hundreds of millions of years it changes the rhythm of the planet. Ancient corals and tidal sediments preserve evidence that days in the distant past were shorter than they are now. Earth is not a perfect sphere. It is slightly flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator because it rotates. This shape is called an oblate spheroid. The difference is not large compared with Earth's overall size, but it is measurable. The equatorial radius is about 21 kilometers larger than the polar radius. This means the point on Earth's surface farthest from the center is not the summit of Mount Everest. It is near the summit of Chimborazo in Ecuador, because Chimborazo sits close to the equator on Earth's bulge. Everest is higher above sea level. Chimborazo reaches farther from the center of the planet. The deepest part of the ocean is deeper than Mount Everest is tall. Challenger Deep, in the Mariana Trench, reaches almost 11 kilometers below sea level. Mount Everest rises about 8.8 kilometers above sea level. If Everest were placed inside the deepest trench, its summit would still lie more than 2 kilometers below the ocean's surface. This is one of those comparisons that reverses ordinary intuition. Mountains dominate the imagination because we can see them. The deepest landscapes on Earth are hidden under dark water, under crushing pressure, on a seafloor that only a small number of humans and machines have directly visited. The seafloor is mostly young compared with the continents. Oceanic crust forms at mid-ocean ridges. where molten rock rises and cools, and it is destroyed at subduction zones, where dense oceanic plates sink back into the mantle. Because of this recycling, most ocean floor is less than 200 million years old. Some continental rocks, by contrast, are billions of years old. The planet's surface is not a fixed shell, but a slow conveyor system. Oceans open and close. Continents collide and split. Mountains rise and erode. The world beneath our feet is moving, but so slowly that a human life feels like stillness. Some rocks remember the direction of Earth's magnetic field from the time they formed. When molten rock cools, magnetic minerals inside it can align with the planet's magnetic field and lock that orientation in place. This preserved magnetism helped reveal seafloor spreading and plate tectonics. On either side of mid-ocean ridges, bands of rock preserve alternating magnetic polarities, showing that Earth's magnetic field has reversed many times. The ocean floor became a tape recorder. The pattern of magnetic stripes on the seafloor is one of the quiet pieces of evidence that transformed geology from a study of static continents into the science of a mobile planet. Earth's magnetic field has reversed many times, with magnetic north and south exchanging places. These reversals do not happen on a perfectly regular schedule. They emerge from the complex motion of molten iron alloys in Earth's outer core, where convection and rotation generate the planet's magnetic field through a geodynamo. During a reversal, the field can become weaker and more complex before settling into the opposite orientation. This sounds catastrophic, but reversals have happened repeatedly through Earth's history without erasing life. The magnetic field is not a rigid bar magnet inside the planet. It is a living fluid process in the deep Earth. The air you breathe is mostly nitrogen, not oxygen. About 78% of Earth's atmosphere is nitrogen, about 21% is oxygen, and the remaining small fraction includes argon, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and trace gases. Oxygen is the gas that human metabolism depends on directly, so it dominates our intuitive sense of what air is for. But nitrogen is the background sea through which oxygen is diluted. Too much oxygen would make fires far more dangerous and chemistry more aggressive. Too little would not sustain animal life as we know it. The quiet composition of the atmosphere is a balance shaped by geology, biology, ocean chemistry, and deep time. Most of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere was produced by photosynthetic organisms, especially cyanobacteria in the ancient oceans. Early Earth had little free oxygen. Then, over billions of years, photosynthesis released oxygen as a waste product, eventually transforming the atmosphere and making complex aerobic life possible. This great oxidation event was not simply a gentle improvement. Oxygen was toxic to many earlier anaerobic organisms, and it changed the chemistry of the planet. Rusting minerals, altered oceans, new metabolic pathways, and the later rise of animals all depended on this atmospheric revolution. The air in a quiet room is partly the legacy of ancient microbes. The largest known living structure built by organisms is the Great Barrier Reef, a vast system made by tiny coral polyps and their symbiotic algae across thousands of years. A coral reef looks like stone, but it is also alive at its surface, built by animals that secrete calcium carbonate skeletons. Corals are fragile partnerships between animal, algae, sunlight, minerals, clear water, and temperature. When water becomes too warm, corals can expel their symbiotic algae, turning pale in a process called bleaching. The reef is therefore both massive and delicate, an enormous biological architecture built by tiny lives, vulnerable to changes in the sea around it. Fungi can be among the largest organisms on Earth. Some species of honey fungus form underground networks of genetically identical mycelium spreading through forests over large areas. Above ground, we see mushrooms as separate fruiting bodies, but underground they can be connected parts of one organism. This forces the mind to loosen its idea of individuality. A creature does not always have one face, one body outline, or one obvious center. A fungus can exist as a hidden network, digesting wood, connecting soil, appearing briefly as mushrooms, and then disappearing back into the dark architecture beneath the forest floor. Slime molds can solve maze-like problems despite having no brain. In famous experiments, the slime mold Physarum polycephalum spread through a maze to find food sources and then withdrew from inefficient paths, leaving a network that approximated a short route between them. This is not conscious planning in the human sense. It is distributed biological computation emerging from growth, chemical gradients, feedback, and the costs of maintaining living tissue. The result can look uncannily intelligent. The slime mold reminds us that problem-solving does not always require neurons. Sometimes it can emerge from the physical dynamics of a living material. Bacteria can exchange genes horizontally, not just inherit them vertically from parent to offspring. Through processes called transformation, transduction, and conjugation, bacteria can acquire genetic material from the environment, from viruses, or from direct contact with other bacteria. This is one reason antibiotic resistance can spread so rapidly. A useful resistance gene does not need to wait for slow descent through generations inside one lineage. It can move sideways into other populations. Evolution, in microbial life, is not always shaped like a branching tree. Sometimes it is more like a network, with information moving across the branches. Viruses are the most abundant biological entities known. The oceans alone contain immense numbers of viral particles, many of them infecting bacteria and other microbes. They are not alive in the same independent metabolic sense as cells, because they require host machinery to replicate. Yet they shape ecosystems, evolution, immune systems, and the movement of genes through the biosphere. Every day, viruses infect marine microbes and help recycle organic matter through ocean food webs. They are invisible to ordinary sight, but at planetary scale they are active participants in the chemistry of life. There are organisms living in environments that would kill a human almost instantly. Thermophilic microbes live in hot springs and hydrothermal vents. Acidophiles tolerate extremely acidic conditions. Halophiles thrive in salt concentrations that would dehydrate ordinary cells. Some microbes live deep underground, obtaining energy from chemical reactions in rock rather than from sunlight. Life is not limited to the gentle middle of the world. It reaches into heat, pressure, darkness, salt, acidity, and radiation. This matters not only for biology on Earth, but for the search for life beyond Earth, where environments may be strange by human standards, but not necessarily by microbial ones. Tardigrades can survive conditions that sound impossible, but they are not invincible. These tiny animals can enter a dehydrated state called a ton, dramatically reducing their metabolism and becoming resistant to extreme cold, vacuum, radiation, and desiccation. In that state, some can survive conditions far beyond normal life, but they can still be killed by heat, by predators, by the wrong environmental sequence, and by ordinary biological limits when active. The real fact is better than the myth. Tardigrades are not magical immortal specks. They are animals with a remarkable survival state that shows how flexible life can be at microscopic scale. Some frogs can survive being partly frozen. Would frogs in northern climates spend winter with much of the water in their bodies frozen into ice, while their cells are protected by high concentrations of glucose and other cryoprotective molecules? Their hearts can stop beating. Their breathing can stop. To an observer, they can appear dead. When spring temperatures rise, the ice melts, circulation resumes, and the frog returns to activity. This does not make the frog magical or immortal. It reveals how carefully biology can manage danger at the boundary between life and stillness. What would destroy ordinary tissue becomes survivable when chemistry changes the rules of freezing. Ice floats because solid water is less dense than liquid water. This is unusual. Most substances become denser when they freeze, but water expands as it forms a crystalline lattice held open by hydrogen bonding. Because ice floats, lakes and oceans freeze from the top down rather than from the bottom up. A layer of surface ice can insulate the liquid water below, allowing aquatic life to survive winter. If ice sank, bodies of water in cold climates could freeze solid more easily, and the history of life on Earth might have been very different. The familiar sight of ice on water is a planetary gift from molecular geometry. Water is most dense at about 4 degrees Celsius, not at its freezing point. As liquid water cools from room temperature, it becomes denser and sinks. But below about 4 degrees, it begins to expand as its molecular structure becomes more ice-like. This creates a strange layering in lakes during winter, with colder water and ice above, and slightly warmer 4-degree water below. Fish and other aquatic organisms can survive in that deeper layer while the surface freezes. Again, a small physical anomaly becomes an ecological shelter. One of the simplest molecules in daily life quietly makes winter survivable. There are many forms of ice besides the ordinary ice in a freezer. Under different pressures and temperatures, water molecules can arrange themselves into many crystalline structures. Ice 2, Ice 2I, Ice 5, Ice 5I, Ice 5II, and more. Some forms exist only under pressures found deep inside planets or in laboratory equipment. Ice, then, is not one substance with one structure, but a family of structures built from the same molecule under different conditions. The white cube in a drink is only the version of ice that belongs to ordinary Earth's surface pressure. Helium can become a superfluid at extremely low temperatures. In this state, liquid helium can flow with effectively zero viscosity, climb the walls of containers and thin films, and pass through tiny pores that ordinary fluids cannot navigate. It behaves not like a familiar liquid, but like a macroscopic quantum system. Superfluid helium is one of the clearest demonstrations that quantum mechanics is not confined to invisible particles. Under the right conditions, quantum behavior can appear at a scale large enough to see, flowing quietly in ways no ordinary liquid would. At very low temperatures, some matter can become a Bose-Einstein condensate, a state in which many atoms occupy the same quantum state and behave collectively, as if they were one quantum object. This was predicted in the early 20th century and first achieved in dilute atomic gases in 1995. The atoms are cooled to temperatures only tiny fractions of a degree above absolute zero, where their quantum wave nature becomes dominant. A cloud of atoms, normally imagined as separate particles, begins to behave as a single coherent system. It is matter whispering in unison. Absolute zero is not simply very cold. It is the lower limit of temperature in the ordinary thermodynamic sense, corresponding to 0 Kelvin, where a system has minimum thermal energy. No physical process can cool an object to absolute zero in a finite number of steps. Laboratories can approach it extremely closely, reaching billionths of a Kelvin, but never exactly touching the limit. At those temperatures, matter stops behaving in ways that match everyday intuition. Heat, motion, order, and quantum uncertainty become part of the same story. The vacuum of space is not truly empty. Even in interstellar space, there are particles, atoms, ions, dust grains, cosmic rays, photons, magnetic fields, and traces of molecules. In quantum field theory, even a perfect vacuum is not simple nothingness, but the lowest energy state of fields that extend through space. The emptiness between stars is therefore not a blank absence. It is thin, cold, and extraordinarily diffuse, but it still has structure. Space is quiet, not empty. The atoms in ordinary matter are mostly empty space, but that phrase can be misleading if taken too literally. An atom has a tiny dense nucleus surrounded by a much larger region described by electron wave functions. The electrons are not little planets orbiting in empty rooms. They are quantum states spread around the nucleus. When your hand presses against a table, you do not feel solid billiard ball atoms touching. You feel electromagnetic interactions and quantum exclusion effects resisting the overlap of electron states. Solidity is not the absence of empty space. It is a force pattern that your nervous system interprets as firm contact. The Pauli exclusion principle is one reason ordinary matter has structure. It says that certain particles, including electrons, cannot occupy the same quantum state. This principle helps determine the structure of atoms, the arrangement of electrons in shells, the chemistry of elements, and the stability of matter itself. It also supports white dwarfs against gravitational collapse through electron degeneracy pressure, and neutron stars through neutron degeneracy pressure and nuclear forces. A rule about quantum states becomes the reason tables do not collapse. Stars leave behind dense remnants, and the periodic table has its shape. Quarks are never found alone under ordinary conditions. They are confined inside particles such as protons and neutrons. If you try to pull quarks apart, the energy in the strong force field between them increases until it becomes favorable to create new quark-antiquark pairs, producing new particles rather than isolated quarks. This is called confinement, and it is one of the strangest features of the strong interaction. The fundamental constituents of familiar matter are not available as isolated objects. They are always bound into composite particles, hidden inside the ordinary atoms that make up the world. Neutrinos pass through your body by the trillions every second. Most come from the sun, created in nuclear reactions in the solar core. They interact through the weak nuclear force, which is so weak at ordinary energies that the vast majority of neutrinos pass through Earth as if it were almost transparent. At this moment, solar neutrinos are streaming through the room, through your body, through the planet, and out into space. They are a continuous message from the sun's nuclear heart, but almost impossible to catch. Huge detectors buried underground wait for the rare interaction that reveals one. Some particles can quantum tunnel through barriers they would not have enough energy to cross in classical physics. Tunneling is not a trick or metaphor. It is a consequence of quantum wave behavior. It plays a role in nuclear fusion in stars, where protons can get close enough to fuse even though their electric repulsion should make that extremely difficult. It also appears in technologies such as tunnel diodes and scanning tunneling microscopes. The sun shines, in part, because the microscopic world does not obey the rules our hands expect. The solar system is mostly empty space, but it is not empty of motion. Planets orbit in ellipses, moons circle planets, asteroids tumble, comets fall inward from distant reservoirs, dust spirals slowly under radiation effects, and the solar wind streams outward from the sun. The stable diagram of the solar system in a textbook is a freeze frame of an ongoing dance. Every orbit is falling without hitting. Every planet is continuously missing the sun. Jupiter has such a strong gravitational influence that it shapes the architecture of the solar system. It shepherds asteroids, disturbs comets, holds Trojan asteroids in stable regions ahead of and behind its orbit, and can both protect Earth from some impacts and send other objects inward. Its mass is more than twice that of all the other planets combined. Jupiter is not simply one planet among 8. It is the dominant gravitational presence after the Sun, a giant whose existence influenced the formation and long-term stability of everything around it. Saturn would float in water if there were an ocean large enough to hold it, but that statement needs care. Saturn's average density is less than that of liquid water because it is mostly hydrogen and helium. But Saturn is not a solid ball that could be placed into a bathtub. It is a gas giant with pressure and density increasing dramatically with depth and no ordinary surface. The comparison is useful because it reveals Saturn's low average density, but it should not be imagined too literally. Some facts are true only when handled gently. On Mars, sunsets are often blue. The Martian atmosphere is thin and dusty, and its fine dust particles scatter sunlight differently from molecules in Earth's atmosphere. On Earth, shorter blue wavelengths are scattered across the daytime sky, leaving sunsets red and orange. On Mars, dust scattering can produce a butterscotch daytime sky and a bluish glow near the setting sun. The colors of a sunset are not universal. They are local chemistry, particle size, atmosphere, pressure, and light written across the horizon. There may be diamond rain deep inside Uranus and Neptune, though this remains a topic studied through models and high-pressure experiments rather than direct observation. These ice giant planets contain carbon-rich compounds under enormous pressure and temperature. Laboratory experiments suggest that under such conditions, hydrocarbons can break apart and carbon can form diamond-like structures that sink deeper into the planet. The image is unforgettable, but it should be held as a plausible physical process, not as a photograph from inside Neptune. Some of the most beautiful scientific facts are inferred from physics rather than directly seen. The largest volcano in the solar system is Olympus Mons on Mars. It rises about 22 kilometers above the surrounding plains and spreads across a base wider than many countries. Its enormous size was possible partly because Mars lacks plate tectonics like Earth's. On Earth, moving plates carry volcanoes away from mantle hotspots, creating chains of volcanoes. On Mars, a volcano could remain over its source for far longer, building upward and outward until it became a shield volcano of planetary scale. A mountain can become enormous when the crust beneath it stays still. The oldest light we can observe directly is the cosmic microwave background, radiation released when the universe cooled enough for atoms to form and light to travel freely. It now fills the sky at a temperature of about 2.7 Kelvin, faint microwave radiation stretched by the expansion of space. It is not a photograph of the Big Bang itself, but it is a baby picture of the universe from about 380,000 years after the beginning of expansion. Every direction in the sky carries this ancient glow. The night is not truly dark. It is filled with cooled down beginnings. Human bones are not dead scaffolding. They are alive, vascularized, innervated, and constantly remodeled. Cells called osteoclasts break down old bone, while osteoblasts build new bone. This remodeling repairs microdamage, adjusts bone structure to mechanical stress, and helps regulate calcium levels in the blood. A skeleton is not a fixed frame. It is a living mineral archive, continually negotiated between strength, weight, chemistry, movement, and repair. Your immune system remembers. After encountering a pathogen or a vaccine, some immune cells become memory cells that persist long after the initial threat is gone. If the same pathogen returns, these memory cells can respond faster and more powerfully than the original response. This is the basis of vaccination, training the immune system with a safe form or fragment of a threat so that the real encounter, if it comes later, is met by a body already prepared. Memory is not only in the brain. The immune system has its own biological version of remembering. Your liver can regenerate to a remarkable degree. If part of the liver is removed, the remaining tissue can grow and restore much of the lost mass, provided the damage is not too severe and the underlying structure remains capable of recovery. This regenerative ability makes living donor liver transplantation possible. It does not mean the liver is indestructible. Chronic injury from viruses, alcohol, fat accumulation, toxins, or autoimmune disease can produce scarring that limits function. But among human organs, the liver has a rare capacity to rebuild itself after loss. Your stomach acid is strong enough to dissolve some metals, but your stomach does not digest itself because it is protected by mucus, bicarbonate, tight epithelial barriers, blood flow, and rapid cellular renewal. The stomach is not a simple acid bag. It is a regulated chemical chamber, releasing acid and enzymes while protecting its own lining from the same digestive power. When that protection fails, ulcers and inflammation can occur. The ordinary act of digestion is therefore a controlled danger, safely contained by living tissue. The gut contains its own nervous system, often called the enteric nervous system, with hundreds of millions of neurons. It can coordinate peristalsis, secretion, blood flow, and local reflexes without direct instruction from the brain. This does not mean the gut thinks in the way the brain thinks, but it does mean digestion is neurologically sophisticated. The body has more than one center of control. Some intelligence is central, some is distributed, and much of life is managed below consciousness. Your sense of balance depends on tiny stones inside the inner ear. These calcium carbonate crystals, called otoconia, sit in the otolith organs and shift with gravity and linear acceleration, bending hair cells that send signals to the brain. Other fluid-filled structures in the inner ear detect rotation. From these tiny mechanical signals, the brain constructs an ongoing sense of orientation. Which way is down, whether the head is turning, whether the body is falling or standing still. A few microscopic crystals help anchor the entire body in space. The smell after rain, often called petrichor, is partly produced by geosmin, a compound made by soil bacteria. Humans can detect geosmin at extremely low concentrations, which is why the smell of wet earth can seem so vivid after the first rain following dry weather. Raindrops hitting soil and porous surfaces can aerosolize tiny particles and compounds, carrying that smell into the air. A weather event becomes a chemical signal. The scent of rain is not the smell of water itself, but of life and soil awakened by water. Some plants can count, in a biochemical sense. The Venus flytrap does not close after a single touch to its trigger hairs. It usually requires 2 touches within a short time window, reducing false alarms from dust or raindrops. Additional stimulation helps trigger digestive enzyme production. This is not counting with numbers or thought, but it is information processing, a living system requiring a pattern of signals before committing energy to a costly action. Even a plant can have thresholds, memory like timing, and decision like behavior without neurons. Plants can detect gravity. Their roots tend to grow downward and shoots upward partly because of statoliths, dense starch-filled structures in specialized cells that settle under gravity and guide growth responses. This process, called gravitropism, allows a seed germinating in darkness underground to orient itself before it ever reaches light. A plant does not need eyes to know up from down. It reads gravity through the movement of material inside cells. Roots know which way is down without having a brain. In the root tip, specialized cells contain dense starch-filled structures called statoliths. These settle under gravity, helping the plant determine direction and guiding growth downward into the soil. Shoots, meanwhile, tend to grow upward, away from gravity and toward light. The plant is not thinking in the animal sense, but it is sensing, integrating, and responding. A seed buried in darkness does not need to see the surface to begin organizing itself. It reads gravity chemically and mechanically, and from that quiet information builds a body with roots below and leaves above. Some seeds can remain viable for astonishing lengths of time. The oldest directly germinated ancient seed widely reported came from a date palm seed around 2,000 years old, recovered from archaeological material and successfully sprouted under controlled conditions. Seeds are biological pauses. They suspend growth, protect an embryo, and wait for conditions that may not arrive for years, decades, or in rare cases much longer. A seed is not dead matter. It is life folded into patience. There are lakes under Antarctica's ice sheet that have been sealed away for extremely long periods. Lake Vostok, buried beneath kilometers of ice, is one of the most famous. Such subglacial lakes are kept liquid by pressure, geothermal heat, and insulation from the ice above. They interest scientists because they may host microbial ecosystems isolated from the surface, and because they offer analogs for possible habitats beneath ice on moons like Europa and Enceladus. A lake can exist in darkness, under a continent of ice, hidden from the sky for longer than human civilization has existed. Some moons in the outer solar system may have more liquid water than Earth, not on the surface, but beneath ice shells. Europa, Ganymede, Callisto, Enceladus, and Titan are all thought to contain subsurface oceans or large reservoirs of liquid water. These oceans are kept warm by tidal heating, radioactive decay, or residual internal heat. The classic image of habitability, a blue planet under sunlight, may be too narrow. Some of the most interesting places to search for life may be dark oceans under ice, far from the warmth of the sun. Saturn's moon Enceladus sprays water-rich plumes into space from cracks near its south pole. Spacecraft observations by Cassini found water vapor, ice particles, salts, and organic molecules in these plumes, indicating a subsurface ocean interacting with rock. This makes Enceladus one of the most scientifically intriguing worlds in the solar system. A moon only about 500 kilometers wide is quietly venting material from an internal sea into space, letting spacecraft sample part of an ocean without landing or drilling. The iron in your blood and the calcium in your bones were made in earlier generations of stars and stellar explosions. The light elements formed mostly in the early universe and in stars, but heavier elements require stellar interiors, supernovae, and in some cases neutron star mergers. The body is therefore not poetically, but physically connected to cosmic history. A red blood cell carrying oxygen through a capillary depends on atoms forged long before Earth existed. Biology is late-arriving chemistry built from ancient stellar ash. Gold is rare on Earth not only because it is uncommon in the universe, but because much of Earth's original gold likely sank toward the core when the planet was molten and differentiating. The gold available in the crust was delivered, concentrated, exposed, and mined through a complicated history of impacts, geology, hydrothermal fluids, erosion, and human labor. A gold ring is not simply expensive because people agree that it is beautiful. It is expensive because planetary chemistry made accessible gold scarce. Diamonds are not forever in the strict physical sense. At Earth's surface, diamond is metastable. It is not the most stable form of carbon under ordinary conditions. Graphite is more stable, but the transformation from diamond to graphite is so slow at room temperature that a diamond remains diamond for practical purposes. Under high heat or the right chemical conditions, it can change or burn. The phrase is useful as advertising and almost true for human timescales, but nature does not promise eternity. It promises slow processes. Some metals can remember shapes. Shape memory alloys, such as nitinol, can be deformed at one temperature and then return to a programmed shape when heated. This happens because of a reversible change in crystal structure between different phases. The metal is not remembering in a nervous system sense, but its atomic arrangement carries a recoverable mechanical state. Materials can have histories built into their structure. A bent wire can, under the right conditions, unfold a previous form as if recalling it. Graphene is a sheet of carbon 1 atom thick, arranged in a hexagonal lattice. It is extraordinarily strong for its thickness, conducts electricity and heat very well, and helped open a vast field of two-dimensional materials research. A one-atom thick sheet sounds impossible because everyday objects need thickness to seem real. But at atomic scale, a material can be essentially all surface. Graphene is not a laboratory curiosity anymore. It is a reminder that changing the dimensionality of matter can change what matter is capable of doing. Some animals can see ultraviolet light that humans cannot. Many birds, insects, and some fish have photoreceptors sensitive to ultraviolet wavelengths, revealing patterns on flowers, feathers, and surfaces invisible to us. A flower that looks plain to human eyes may display a vivid ultraviolet landing guide for a bee. The world is not one visual world. It is many overlapping visual worlds, each shaped by the sensory equipment of the animal perceiving it. Human reality is only one rendering. Some flowers have patterns that humans cannot see, but bees can. Many flowers reflect ultraviolet light in ways that create hidden markings around the center of the bloom, often described as nectar guides. To human eyes, a petal may look plain yellow or white. To a bee, the same flower may have a dark central target, bright directional markings, or a contrast pattern that guides it toward nectar and pollen. The flower has not changed. The viewer has. Reality contains layers that depend on the sensory system looking at it, and whole conversations between plants and pollinators happen in a part of the spectrum humans only learn to detect with instruments. Birds can sense Earth's magnetic field, though the exact mechanisms are still under investigation. Migratory birds use magnetic information along with stars, the sun, landmarks, odors, and learned routes. Some evidence points to light-sensitive chemical reactions in proteins called cryptochromes in the eye. Other evidence involves magnetite-based receptors. However it is implemented, the ability is astonishing. A bird crossing continents may be feeling a directional property of the planet itself, using Earth as a map written in invisible field lines. Some animals sleep with half of the brain at a time. Dolphins and some other marine mammals show unihemispheric sleep, in which one cerebral hemisphere enters a sleep-like state while the other remains more awake. This allows them to surface for air, maintain some awareness of their surroundings, and continue swimming. Certain birds can also use forms of one-sided sleep, especially in risky environments. Sleep is not one universal shutdown. Evolution has modified it to fit the demands of bodies, predators, breathing, migration, and survival. The immortal-sounding jellyfish Turritopsis dohrnii is not immortal in the invulnerable sense. It can revert from its adult medusa form back to a polyp-like stage under stress, effectively moving backward in its life cycle. That process can, in principle, repeat. But the animal can still be eaten, infected, injured, or killed by unsuitable conditions. Its significance is not that it defeats death completely, but that it shows developmental time can be biologically reversible in ways that seem impossible from a human perspective. Life does not always move in one direction. A lobster does not age the way a human does, but lobsters are not biologically immortal. They continue growing through molting and maintain telomerase activity in some tissues, which led to popular claims that they do not age. In reality, molting becomes more energetically costly and dangerous as lobsters grow larger, and they can die from exhaustion, shell disease, predation, injury, or failed molts. The more careful fact is still fascinating. Aging is not one universal mechanism expressed identically in all animals. Different bodies fail in different ways. The Greenland shark may live for centuries. Radiocarbon dating of Ilen's proteins suggests that some individuals may be several hundred years old, perhaps more than 4 centuries. These sharks grow slowly in cold Arctic and North Atlantic waters, moving through deep time almost invisibly. A single animal alive today may have been swimming before the Industrial Revolution. Long life, in this case, is not dramatic. It is slow metabolism, cold water, delayed maturity, and a world where time passes differently because everything is slowed down. The bowhead whale can also live for more than 2 centuries. Evidence from old harpoon points found embedded in living whales, along with molecular aging studies, suggests extraordinary longevity. These whales inhabit Arctic and subarctic waters, carrying in their bodies traces of centuries of ocean history. A bowhead whale alive today may have been born before many modern nations existed in their current form. Biology sometimes keeps time better than archives. Some trees are older than the pyramids. Bristlecone pines in the White Mountains of California can live for more than 4,000 years. And some clonal plant systems may be far older if the connected root system is counted as one genetic individual. A tree can be ancient not because it is invulnerable, but because it grows slowly, repairs damage, tolerates harsh conditions, and avoids the rapid life cycle of more competitive environments. Longevity is often not lushness. Sometimes it is patience in a difficult place. A single teaspoon of healthy soil can contain more microorganisms than there are people in a city. Bacteria, archaea, fungi, protists, nematodes, and tiny arthropods form an underground ecosystem of immense complexity. Soil is not dirt in the dismissive sense. It is a living interface between rock, air, water, roots, decay, and microbial metabolism. Without soil life, forests, farms, grasslands, and much of terrestrial life would not function. The ground beneath a quiet garden is crowded beyond imagination. The planet is covered in invisible chemical conversations. Plants release volatile compounds. Bacteria sense quorum signals from their neighbors. Animals leave pheromones, scent marks, stress hormones, alarm cues, and metabolic traces. The air and water are filled with signals that human senses mostly ignore. Nature is not silent. It is saturated with information. We live inside it without hearing most of the language. Your body emits a tiny amount of light. Living cells produce ultra-weak photon emissions as byproducts of metabolic reactions involving reactive oxygen species. This biophoton emission is far too faint for human eyes to see, but sensitive equipment can detect it. It is not an aura in the mystical sense. It is chemistry, low-level light from oxidative processes inside living tissue. The fact is more beautiful because it is physical. The body is not glowing with magic. It is faintly shining with metabolism. Your body also produces a faint electrical field because every nerve impulse, heartbeat, and muscle contraction is an electrical event. The electrocardiogram records the summed electrical activity of the heart at the skin. The electroencephalogram records tiny voltage fluctuations produced by synchronized activity in the brain. These signals are weak, but they are real enough to guide medicine every day. A doctor can watch the timing of the heart's chambers through electrodes on the chest. A sleep laboratory can identify sleep stages through patterns of brain waves. The body is not only chemical and mechanical. It is electrical, too, a quiet storm of ions moving through membranes, producing rhythms that can be measured from the outside. Even ordinary warmth is a kind of radiation. Every object above absolute zero emits electromagnetic radiation according to its temperature, including the walls of a room, a cup of tea, a sleeping animal, and a human body. Most of the radiation from a warm human body is infrared, invisible to the eyes but detectable by thermal cameras. That is why a person can be seen in darkness by instruments sensitive to heat. The body is not only receiving the world through sight, sound, smell, and touch. It is also quietly giving energy back to the room as heat, a soft physical signature of metabolism continuing through the night. The brain itself has no pain receptors in the way the skin does. This is why some brain surgeries can be performed while patients are awake, with the scalp and skull anesthetized, allowing surgeons to map functional areas as the patient speaks or moves. The pain of headaches comes not from the brain tissue itself, but from blood vessels, meninges, muscles, nerves, and other pain-sensitive structures around it. The organ that produces the experience of pain cannot directly feel cutting in the same way the skin can. That is deeply strange. Anesthesia is still not completely understood. Doctors can reliably use anesthetic drugs to prevent pain, awareness, and movement during surgery, but the exact mechanisms by which consciousness is suspended remain an active area of neuroscience. Different anesthetics act on different molecular targets, including GABA receptors, NMDA receptors, ion channels, and network-level brain dynamics. Consciousness can be turned off and back on with chemicals, yet science still cannot give a complete account of why a particular pattern of brain activity is accompanied by experience. Modern medicine uses a doorway that philosophy and neuroscience are still trying to understand. The placebo effect is not simply imagining improvement. Placebos can trigger measurable changes in pain perception, neurotransmitter release, immune responses, and symptom experience, depending on the condition and context. Expectations, prior learning, clinician interaction, and the meaning attached to treatment can influence the body's own regulatory systems. This does not mean belief cures everything, and it should never be used to dismiss real disease. It means the brain and body are linked deeply enough that context can become biology. The nocebo effect is the darker counterpart of the placebo effect. Negative expectations can worsen symptoms, increase pain, or produce side effects even when a treatment is inert. This is one reason communication in medicine matters. Words are not just information. They can shape prediction, attention, stress physiology, and bodily perception. Again, this is not imaginary weakness. It is the nervous system doing what it evolved to do: anticipate danger and prepare the body accordingly. Sometimes prediction itself becomes part of the experience. Memory is not a perfect recording. Each time a memory is retrieved, it can become temporarily malleable and then be stored again, a process called reconsolidation. This means remembering is partly reconstructing. The brain does not open a fixed file exactly as it was written. It rebuilds an experience from stored fragments, context, emotion, and present meaning. This is why memory can be vivid and still inaccurate. The mind is not lying. It is recreating. The brain can erase attention from things that are directly in front of the eyes. In inattentional blindness experiments, people focusing on one task often fail to notice a surprising object passing through the scene, even when it is large, obvious, and later impossible to miss once pointed out. The eyes may receive the light, but perception is not only light entering the eyes. It is selection, prediction, expectation, and attention. The world we experience is not a full copy of the world available to the senses. It is an edited model, built in real time, good enough for action, but not complete. This is why science needs instruments, replication, and humility. The mind is powerful, but it is not a perfect witness. The brain predicts the world constantly. Perception is not simply raw input flowing inward. The brain uses prior knowledge and expectation to interpret incomplete signals from the senses. In many cases, perception is a controlled hallucination constrained by reality. The brain guesses what is out there, checks the guess against incoming data, and updates when the error is large enough. This is why illusions work. They do not break the visual system. They reveal how the visual system normally succeeds. Most of what the body does is never consciously noticed. Blood pressure adjusts. Pupils change diameter. The immune system samples tissue. The liver regulates nutrients. The kidneys tune salt and water. The inner ear stabilizes posture. The gut moves. The heart varies its rhythm from beat to beat. Consciousness is not the manager of the body. It is one bright room in a vast building where most of the work is happening quietly, without needing permission. And perhaps that is why strange facts are relaxing when they are told slowly. They remind us that the world has never depended on being simple. The atoms do not need our intuition to hold together. The stars do not need our attention to burn. The body does not need us to supervise every cell. Reality is strange, but it is not random. It is structured, measurable, patterned, and deep. There is comfort in that. The universe can be stranger than we expected and still be reliable enough to rest inside. And that, perhaps, is where to leave this collection of extraordinary truths. In the quiet recognition that the universe, even at its most familiar, your own body, the air around you, the floor you are resting on, is stranger than ordinary perception reveals. The atoms are mostly empty space, but matter holds together. The floor beneath you is not simple solidity, but electromagnetic interaction and quantum structure. The consciousness processing these words is the work of billions of neurons, glial cells, chemical signals, memories, predictions, and rhythms of activity no complete description has ever captured. Strange, all of it, and true enough to make the room feel larger. Sleep well. Good night.